everyone, welcome and welcome back. I have so much to talk to you about today. I'm honestly like a chameleon on a Smartie box. For those who don't know, Smarties are like M&Ms. In other words, I am confused and I don't know where to start. Okay, I think I'll start with a question. What the heck is going on with the dollar? Now, I know what is going on with my country's economy, so I doubt the rand is actually strengthening. So I can only believe that the dollar is weakening. And talking about the dollar and America, my sister is 12 years younger than me, and she only made up her mind to have a kid in her mid to late 30s. So her daughter is only 11, turning 12, and the little mite is an excellent, talented dancer who worked very, very hard to get through to the nationals. And guess what? She is doing so well that she has been chosen to represent the country at the international competition in Orlando, Florida at Disney World next year. We are all so excited that we'll worry about the cost when the time comes, like 3 months ahead of the actual event next year. Dragon Man also passed his level 2 first aid. They phoned yesterday asking for his identity number so they could prepare his certificate. The young man will also be working this 10-day school break to start collecting pocket money for the leadership camp he had been invited to after he was elected to the student council. The poor bloke has never camped before, so he also still needs a sleeping bag, tracksuit pants, and an entire A4 page full of stuff. I mean, it's absolutely magnificent to have these children do so well, and we are very, very proud. Pity we don't have enough kidneys to sell. Anyway, okay, enough with the bragging about the children, but I'm just so proud. It makes the little struggle that we have worth having, if you understand what I mean. Okay, guys, I want you to tell me, how do you feel about Sarah Mullally, I don't know how to say her surname, becoming the first ever archbishop of Canterbury? Now, I don't know how I feel about it. All I can say is I guess I'm not as progressive as I thought I was. Okay, so let's finally move on to the royals. So Richard Eden not only thinks there is an establishment plot against William and Catherine, but that the government has indeed now joined the plot in order to bring Harry and Meghan back. Now, I'll keep this short, if I may. There is only one reason why the government would, or the so-called establishment would want to bring Harry and Meghan back, and that is if they had sent them to the United States in the first place. There's a rumor floating about that Harry and Meghan's stay in the United States was instigated and facilitated by certain forces assisted by the King and all the WEF or whoever to infiltrate the establishment in America, to work in groups like the Aspen Institute to try and demolish America's First Amendment, to destroy free speech, which is a rumor I could get behind, except for one thing, And that is that neither Harry nor Meghan is clever enough to be some sort of spy or likable enough to actually influence anyone to think differently. But it could also be that they, whoever they are, overestimated Harry and Meghan, particularly Meghan, because she gave herself out to be this vibrant, open-minded, highly intelligent person whom we now know absolutely presented a facade. I mean, she's none of that. But anyway, they probably thought that Harry and Meghan were popular and cool and capable of building up a huge following, and that they would be welcomed by the rich and famous. And who better to get on your side than the rich and famous? Well, and now they have to face a situation where it did not work out and is actually causing the opposite from what they wanted to achieve. And now they have this tedious task of bringing Harry and Meghan back to Britain and back to what they had before. At the very least, it may be something they even promised them. Who knows? Now, that is the only thing I can personally think of which could possibly make this statement by Richard Eden true. However, having said this, I absolutely believe that there is an establishment plot to harm William and Catherine by implication. And I'll give you my opinion and what I think is happening. But first, I want to remind you about a few other things. What I'm going to do is I'm going to quote Prince Phillip on a few things. Prince Phillip expressed strong views on overpopulation. He viewed human population growth as the most serious long-term threat to survival. He believed that if population growth was not controlled, it will lead to disaster. The very same Prince Philip said publicly in true Philip style, and I quote, "If I were reincarnated, I would wish to be returned to Earth as a killer virus to lower human population levels," said the man who had 4 children that we know of. Anyway, remember, Philip was the co-founder and leader of the Worldwide Fund for Nature, the WWF, an organization with conservation projects in 50 countries. Anyway, although Philip wanted to eradicate a portion of the population, it was also him who predicted in 1977 already that Britain will become a grim place to live in, with individual freedom gradually taken away from the people by a growing number of bureaucrats. Anyway, I'm telling you this because normally a child is born a blank slate with a tiny bit of influence via his or her DNA. Environment, education, family, peers, etc. play a much larger role in ideology. Now, when it comes to the now King Charles, he once said, and I quote, "A free media is one that will and does make mistakes, but at its least it is a cornerstone of our democracy." Having said that, the current king has not always stayed true to his own words. Instead, there's many who feels that he could instead be well compared with Charles I At the time, Milton was arguing against the British state and King Charles I for forbidding the printing of books and pamphlets unless the printer was approved and licensed by Parliament. Now, although he pays lip service to free speech, Charles III would also like to claim free speech for himself and no one else. It does appear that under Keir Starmer, Charles is getting exactly what he wanted. A government who believe they ought to be able to decide what is acceptable for Britons to read, write and say, and what is not. And here is the kicker. The British government has now implemented the Online Safety Act, and according to government, the act is to control illegal content and activity. Content and activity which is harmful to children. Now, does that ring a bell? Yes, of course it does. That is exactly the ideology and speech Harry and Meghan took to America, word for word, letter by letter. You see, the thought is that nobody wants to be associated with child endangerment, so they will be reluctant to oppose your censorship bill. Clever, very clever, don't you think? So you see, it is not completely out of the realm of possibility that Harry at least was cajoled and enticed to leave Britain and lend his voice and status to the protect children and everyone else against free speech, or otherwise you will be labelled a danger to children. All a big fat lie, as it is anything but for the children. And there is a huge difference between free speech and abuse, something they obviously do not want us to think too deeply about. As Charles has not spoken out or vetoed some of the stupid, senseless legislation brought to him for his signature, one can only assume that he approves of it. It is even said by people who know Charles that when it comes to freedom of speech, he very much wants freedom of speech and opinion for himself, but absolutely no one else, particularly not for the plebeians or then the great unwashed. So again, there may be truth in the rumour that Charles was hoping that Harry would bring his father's ideology to the United States, and because it did not work, they have to work their magic now to get him back. Otherwise, it's plainly a matter of making sure that Harry is taken care of before his father leaves this earthly plane. Because the way things look at the moment, William may either ignore Harry's existence or cut him loose completely. So it's either one of these two things. I don't exactly know which one, but let's move on and further dissect. And then maybe you guys can read between the lines or at least tell me what you think. And now we get to William. Why would there be a campaign to humiliate and discredit him? Now, I wish I could give you a definite answer, but I can't. There had been a number of reasons put forth to me, and they are as follows. Number one, Charles's jealousy of William and Catherine's popularity. Number two, Charles's fear of a coup d'etat or a coup or even a forced abdication in favor of William. Number 3, this one does not make sense to me at all, but maybe somehow it will make sense to you. Note that the following reasons are from more academic sources, okay? I'm not going to go deeper into that. There are times where we honestly need to protect our sources, and this is one of those times. But just know that it's not coming from me, okay? There are people who have really studied the situation and the psychology and the history and so on. So here we go with number 3. In times when the monarchy is facing severe criticism, the palace will engage in damage control, which could appear as if they are discrediting someone. Now, as I said, I do not understand this unless they mean that they make someone the fall guy. I don't know. What do you think? Number 4, they may want to manage public affection by downplaying William's abilities and opinions if it does not align with a certain or specific vision for the future. Number 5, internal politics and power struggles. There may very well be a faction wanting to bring Harry back for whatever reason and are trying to discredit William because they know he's against it. Number 6, lowering the expectations the public may have for William. Not only may it lower the pressure on William, but it could also protect the institution. Number 7, the palace may also be highlighting William's flaws to make him appear more relatable. I personally do not think it is number 7. Anyway, there's currently no reason why government would be involved in discrediting William. Yes, Keir Starmer and Labour in general may be anti-monarchy, but with Charles at the helm, they are getting more agreeable support than they expected. So at the moment, the monarchy is working in their favour, and it would not be in their interest to rock the boat, so to speak. What exactly Richard Eden meant by the establishment, nobody really knows, because there's no known faction under the titled and non-titled elite who would benefit by the destruction of the monarchy, because I can't remember exactly who said it, so my inquiry to this particular scholar included the question. The phrase I was looking for was a warning made by someone to the societal elites, and it went something like this: if the monarchy goes, you will be next. The clever scholar helping me with the content of this video said that it is potentially paraphrasing of 1 Samuel 8, and that it highlights the danger to the established elite when the power of the monarchy either grows or if it is abolished completely. It is also a statement rooted in the idea that the royal family is a sort of buffer, absorbing anger directed at other elites. It basically suggests that the abolition of the monarchy could mean a radical social upheaval targeting all forms of inherited and unearned privilege. So this definitely not in my opinion or the opinion of the person who knows most of what there is to know about British historic and current laws and culture, any reason why the societal elite would want to embarrass or discredit Prince William. So my conclusion is that the negative publicity aimed at William is not coming from the British government, nor from the titled and untitled British elite, and therefore I can only conclude that it originates from inside the palace due to some kind of perceived power struggle or jealousy, Anyway, what about Harry and Meghan, you ask? I'm sorry, the answer is short and powerful. They have no power in Britain unless backed and supported by a power much, much bigger than them. So yes, in that case, I also conclude that there may be or are some snappy, bitchy, snarky rhetoric put out by the ditzy, delusional Duchess and her crew, but not the kind which can do real harm. So here is a tip from my helpful scholar. Look at the language used in articles. Journalists will try to stick as close to the verbiage of their informant as possible to prevent future backlash to themselves. So you would possibly be able to recognize which articles are from a British source and which from elsewhere. And also look at the actual accusation. He pushed me into the dog bowl and broke my necklace. That is purely Montecito for you. Okay? But Prince William's true nature has been exposed by palace insiders as they made shocking revelations about the future king. And then there are words like facing growing scrutiny, noticeably more demanding, intent on asserting authority. Okay, that article is not from Montecito. Okay, but before I go, maybe I'm wrong, and if I am, can somebody please prove me wrong by sending a screenshot or whatever? Okay, now remember Ramadan. Remember the Muslims celebrating iftar, breaking of the fast at Windsor. Remember Charles wishing them a blessed Ramadan, packing dates, etc. Well, did he wish the Jewish community a blessed Yom Kippur? I could not find anything, but maybe I just missed it. Can you help if I'm wrong, please? Anyway, Charles issued one of his copy and paste messages after the horrific incident at the Heaton Park Hebrew congregation in Manchester City. My wife and I have been deeply shocked and saddened to learn of the horrific attack in Manchester, especially on such a significant day for the Jewish community. Our thoughts and prayers are with all those affected by this appalling incident, and we greatly appreciate the swift actions of the emergency services. Now, I'm sorry, it could not have been any more impersonal and cold if he tried. I can imagine him calling his secretary and telling him to use letter sample number 3. Yes, King Charles, the Muffin Man of Manchester, could have done it better. But of course, we know you support and recognise the state of Palestine, as your government does, and Keir Starmer publicly announced. My dear ladies and gentlemen, I hear many of you blaming Starmer for the tragedy. But he can't take the blame alone. You have to blame your king also, the one who cannot do something so significant without the blessing of the other. Okay, guys and girls, this was a longer one, and I think this will become the future of this particular channel. Longer researched videos every second day instead of shorter videos every day. We'll see how much work I'll get at my other job, but for now it is goodbye, take care and stay safe. Bye.